Okay, Hina, we can start.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and good evening to you all. On behalf of the Africa Federation Women's Board, I would like to welcome the panel and the audience to our program, Building Bridges, Connecting Dots to Boost a Healthy Mother-Teen Relationship. I am Hina Fatima Azad, the representative of Mombasa Jamaat in the Africa Federation Women's Board, and I'll be your host this evening. Tonight, we shall be having an interactive discussion about how to improve a parent-teen relationship, focusing on key goals and pertaining issues. For this, we have with us our moderator, Sister Anar Karim, who is a teacher by profession, a diploma holder in early childhood development education, and she's also been trained in LDP, MDP, and MCE. Our speaker, Sister Farzana Hirji Karawali, who is a learning disabilities nurse, a registered social worker, and a holistic therapeutic life coach. Zakira Masuma Tishanawaz, who is a Zakira and a madrasa teacher. And she's a diploma holder in counseling and has also pursued MDP and conscious parenting. Sister Mohaimina Jan Muhammad, who is a TED speaker, an author, and a winner of the Women Leadership Award. Let's commence the program with the Quran reflection. And for this, I would like to invite Sister Farhana Habib. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة وقال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين أولئك الذين نتقبل عنهم أحسن ما عملوا ونتجاوز عن سيئاتهم في أصحاب الجنة وعد الصدق الذي كانوا يوعدون. In the name of Allah, the most kind and the most merciful. We have commanded people to honor their parents. Their mothers bore them in hardship and delivered them in hardship. Their period of bearing and weaning is 30 months. In time, when the child reaches their prime at the age of 40, they pray, my Lord, inspire me to always be thankful for your favors, which you blessed me and my parents with, and to do good deeds that please you, and instill righteousness in my offspring. I truly repent to you and I truly submit to your will. It is from these people that we will accept the good they did and overlook their misdeeds, along with the residents of paradise, in fulfillment of the true promise they have been given. The verses I have recited are from Surah Ahqaf, verses 15 and 16. The Quran directly speaks about the responsibility of the human towards their parents, and specifically towards their mothers. We find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is a command towards insan, humans in general. This shows the universality of the command to show respect towards the parents. It shows that this ruling was one of those that can never change with time throughout the different prophets, and that the parent's rank in the human's life is incomparable to any other relation. The following verses after that show that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places this as a condition for entering paradise, and that those who aren't able to show love and mercy towards them are truly losers, which echoes the narrations of the Messenger, where he says that if someone was to displease his parents, they would not smell the fragrance of paradise. The reason why the rights of the parents are shown to be so important and to show them love and mercy is explained in the following verse, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlines that the default or innate position of the parents towards their child is love and mercy, regardless of how they treat them. And we see this concept all around us. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul azim.
Thank you, Sister Farhana. I would now like to hand over to Sister Anar Karim to begin the discussion.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, dear moms and our precious gems, our teenagers. Welcome to the Building Bridges program, which has been organized by the Africa Federation Women's Board. From the terrible twos to the teenage years, parents have lamented the difficulties associated with these specific seasons in their child's development. While these seasons certainly have their own challenges, they also reflect a time of growth. Teenagers experience many changes during the transitional period in their lives, leading to adulthood. This growth period can be stressful and confusing for both teens and parents alike. Raising a child doesn't come with a book of instructions. If it did, the task would be much easier. Young people going through the process of adolescence need what they have always needed from their parents. They want our love, our support, our encouragement, our nurture, acceptance, and attention. In today's platform, our panelists will work towards the following objectives. Number one, provide sound guide for parents to cultivate stronger relationships with their teenage children. Number two, offer practical tips to develop a deeper understanding of teenagers. Number three, using their experience and knowledge, they will provide help to parents to develop effective communication with the teenagers. Before we start our session, a polite request, please mute your mics unless during the Q&A, where you will be allowed to unmute and ask questions. We will now start off with our panelists who will discuss various aspects on teenagers and pertinent issues. We'll start off with Sister Farzana.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I'd like to say thank you first for Africa Federation and Mombasa Jamaat for inviting me for today's talk. Thank you.
Okay, welcome aboard, sister. Now, we've heard about the Holy Prophet discussing that to be friendly and kind to the children. As a parent, Farzana, can a parent be a friend to a teenager?
A parent can be friendly to a teenager, but a parent can't be a friend to a teenager because a parent is a guide. And so they can't share the same wavelength, as it were, as the teenager. So if a parent is a guide, they need to be very careful in terms of the type of communication that they have with that child. And they have to be aware that there's boundaries. So for example, if a parent has been to university and got up to some mischief or something, yes, they need to tell the child that, you know, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your circumstance. I understand that, you know, you've got a lot of pressures, peer pressures from friends and things like that, and that mistakes can be made. And that you need to obviously find ways around it and have communication so we can guide you and we can help you. However, you can't sit and talk about your problems and your issues and what trouble you got into at that age, because that becomes a burden on that child. Yep, you're burdening the child with your issues, with what your history is. And to some extent, even that child may misinterpret what you're saying when you don't have those boundaries and you start to talk about, you know, details about what's happened in your life. They may not understand it to the level of why you're explaining it to them. You're obviously explaining it to them because you don't want them to go down that route, but to some extent, you don't know what their perception of what you're saying is. So I would suggest that, yes, be friendly, be open and have communication, but make sure that you have boundaries. You should know where to stop, not to continue talking to them like they're your pals, because then that respect that they should have towards you, that understanding that you are their guide, that would diminish. And at the end of the day, until they're adults, you are their guide. When they are adults, yes, if you want to talk about your past, if you want to open up about things, then you can do that when they're much older and they've experienced their life. And I think that's the other thing. We need to allow our youth, our teenagers, our children to experience life. If we try and hold them back from things, then we're not allowing them to explore. And if you don't allow somebody to explore, you're not allowing them to grow. Can I give a further example about growth?
Yes, please, go ahead.
If we're growing, if we have a plant, okay, we have a small plant that we've bought. Now we water it, we nourish it, and it grows. It gets to a point where it can't grow any further. The roots will struggle in that pot, and so the branches will not grow enough. You need to then remove that child from that pot and put the plant from the pot and put the plant into a larger pot. And again, that plant will grow just like a child will grow in a different environment. You take them from an environment where you treat them like a baby and you put them into an environment where you treat them like a toddler. Then again, you change the pot and you increase the size so that plant can grow further. And you keep doing that until the plant is large enough that it can actually be planted outside. And that's when that child is left alone to explore and grow for themselves. And they know that you're there behind them, but you don't need to continue to nurture them to the same level. And I think that's what we need to bear in mind in terms of our relationship with our youth.
Okay, thank you for that, Farzana. Over to the next question. This is a cry that comes time and again for all teenage parents. Help! My teenager has stopped talking to me. What do I do?
I think the issue we have in terms of nurturing our relationship with our children is because we're seeing them from our lens and we're not understanding what they're going through. We're not understanding their life. And we hear the sayings of Imam Ali where, I don't know exactly the sayings, I'm sure somebody can help me out here, but we live our life, but we shouldn't treat our children the same way or bring them up the same way as we were brought up, because their world is very different. Now, it's easy to say, for example, my parents and extended family came from Africa, from back home, and I was brought up in the UK. And yes, to some extent, my parents did keep very strong culture and religion within the home environment, but they were very much aware that I was growing up in a different environment that had different needs. And I think if we're mindful of that from a young age, then the children will know that we understand them, and they will start to develop communication with us and open up with us because they know that we know where they're coming from. So the problem is when we don't appreciate the life that they're living, and we don't understand it, and we don't want to understand it. I think to start communication, first you need to be bonding with that child. And the way you do that is, yes, you want to teach them things, but I think you need to learn to spend time with them side by side. So as a child, if they're babies or toddlers, we would, when they're playing, we would play with them, right? With bricks or blocks or whatever it is. We will play alongside them. So the child is mirroring and seeing what we're doing. As they get older, maybe bake alongside them. Do something continuously alongside them. So, watching movies together is lovely. Playing games together is lovely. But do something alongside them. And the reason why is you're not actually engaged in an activity that holds too much attention, like playing games or watching movies. You're engaged in an activity that allows that child during the activity to communicate with you. Yep. So if there's any chance that they feel at that time that, you know, they feel a sense of warmth and they feel comfortable and they want to open up, they have the option to open up and speak to you at that time. So try and develop spaces, you know, gardening, whatever it may be, where you're actually alongside them and you're communicating at the same time. The problem is we tend to sit them down in front of us and then, so how's your day? What did you do? Why did you do it? Well, who's your friends? They don't want to answer you. They feel you're putting them under pressure. So if you're doing something alongside your child and, oh yeah, what happened to your school play that you did? How did it go? But the attention of that child is on the activity. And so they don't feel under pressure and they're more happy to actually talk to you. So that would be a good way to actually, I hope that's answered the question in terms of different ways that we can communicate with the child to get them to open up.
Yes, definitely it has, Sister Farzana. Okay, over to the next one. In today's world, what does our teenager need to be fully rounded?
Ooh, tricky one. Like I said, they need us to understand that we understand them. We need a feeling, a connection between us. And the connection isn't just about, you know, have you prayed to namaz? Have you done this? Have you done that? That's a duty that we have towards our children. The connection is something when you can feel them within a space. And if you can feel your child within a quiet space, then the child can feel you. And if we just allow them to have space. So for example, when we're speaking to our children, I'm going to go slightly off that topic if it's okay, very slightly to explain. If we're going to be talking to our children, when they're little and they're, you know, you want to tell them off, you lean over them. It's an automatic reaction. So you lean over and then you start, you know, you shouldn't have done that. That was just terrible. You cannot be like that, or whatever it may be, or that finger moving and things like that. As they get older, do you want to turn the mic?
Request.
Perfect, it's on mute. So as they get older, what you want to do is actually move back, give them space. No more of the crouching. Like I said, if you know the child needs space, just like we said in the plant pot. Yes, that plant pot needs space. So physically, we have to move back from the child and allow that child to be able to feel safe. As we lean over, it's putting a lot of pressure on the child. So we move back, we give them space, we're more relaxed, shoulders relaxed, yes? All these kind of cues that we give that child learns those cues and is then able to identify those cues when they're out in the community, when they're at school, college, university, when they're looking for a spouse. So if we're not careful of the way we communicate with our children, the words we use, the level of honesty we have, transparency, again, like I said, our posture, then when those children go out, even our facial expressions, you know, need to be congruent with the words that we're saying. When they go out in the community, they won't be able to find those. They will be looking for other cues. So if we're negative with our children all the time, and there's no nurturing, our facial expressions are always negative, when that child or that teenager goes out into the community, all they will notice are the negative cues. Does that make sense? And this is where you have issues of anxiety and emotional distress because they don't understand themselves. So to make a holistic environment, to make a child feel balanced, we need to show them balance. Yes, life is difficult. They need to understand that life is difficult. And the troubles that we go through, if we've lost our job, if, you know, we've got an illness, we need to be open and honest with our child, not burden them, like I said, have boundaries, and tell them, look, at the moment I'm not working, it's very difficult, I don't have the money. They will appreciate that you've been honest with them. You know, I'm not well, I can't do certain things, but let's see what we can do. And then they get to see the fun stuff, you know, the happiness in life. But they have to see a balance of both to be able to appreciate both, so that when they grow up in the world, if something difficult comes their way, they understand it and they're able to manage it because they haven't been kind of cocooned or mollycoddled away from difficult times. Now that was a really broad example. I hope that's answered the question that you're asking as well.
Yes, and you've powerfully put it so well that in order to show balance, we have to give an example of balance to our children, first and foremost. And also the way you have metaphorically put in about how you have to, your potted plant, how you allow space. That's so beautiful. And as you can see from the chat, everyone's appreciating the explanations that you've given. So thank you so much, Sister Farzana. We'll definitely come back to you on the Q&A. So hang on in there. Yeah. All right. Over to our next panelist, Sister Muhaimina. Sister Muhaimina.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Walaikum salam.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you so much, Africa Federation, for organizing this event, the Women's Board, Sister Hina, for organizing this event. I feel it's very helpful to all the moms and all the teens in this .com generation, how to deal with your children and how can your children deal with you. And thank you so much for organizing this in the first place.
Okay. Thank you, Muhaimina, for accepting and being part of the panelists. Muhaimina has been a teenager in this recent years, and we're going to learn firsthand from her and from her experience. Okay, over to the first and foremost important question. So can you tell us who or what is a teen? Because it's important to understand teenagers before we go into pertinent issues.
So I'd like to answer that question with a scenario, a hands-on scenario, and I'm sure many mothers have experienced this. So I'm going to say it in a conversation. I hope you can understand it that way. Okay. Parent, how did you get that bruise on your leg? Teenager, it was at school during recess. Parent, what happened? Teenager, we were at recess playing. Teenager removes his phone or her phone from the pocket and opens TikTok, pushes the volume button right on top. Parent, but what happened? Did you get hurt while playing? Teen, no. Parent, did someone do it on purpose to you? Teenager, no, we were just playing. Parent, I thought you said you weren't hurt while playing. The volume goes up another notch. No, that's not what I meant, he says. Parent, can you turn off that phone for a minute? A teenager, okay, wait. This part in the TikTok is really funny. Just wait. Parent, did you just tell me to wait or did you just tell me okay? My dear parents, mommies, I'm sure at some point or quite often you experience such a situation. And I am totally sure that this action must be so annoying and blood boiling. But today I'm going to tell you what a teen is and what challenges he or she faces and why they do what they do and why this action of a teenager may be wrong. So a teenager, if you go on Google, they'll give you a very simple answer, but I'm going to tell you in one word. A teenager is now an adult, walking towards the path that you walked once. The teen years are amongst the most difficult times in life to navigate for both teenagers and parents. But like so many things in life, if you work hard and invest your effort, you will see a rewarding payoff that can last a lifetime. The teenage years are a time of transition from childhood into adulthood. Teenagers often have a strong desire to be independent, so they may struggle with still being dependent on their parents. They may also feel overwhelmed by the emotional and physical changes that they are experiencing. From the scenario that I just mentioned at the beginning, the reason why that teenager did not want to tell the parents exactly what happened is because this child wanted to feel independent. In a sense that mommy and daddy don't have to know everything. And here is where every teenager goes wrong. I mean, imagine you go to school the next day after your bruise and your friend asks you, did you tell your mom and dad? Did you tell them exactly what happened about that bruise? Did they get mad at you? Imagine you tell them, I went to cry to mommy and daddy that I got hurt on my leg. You will lose your coolness in front of them. And trust me, coming from a very recent teen, this is the last thing in the world that you would want. For teenagers, this is the most important part of their life. The superiority they may have amongst their friends is their biggest happiness as opposed to their relationship with their parents. To be very honest, I have never been a teenager who has felt distance from her parents or her mother. In my house, I'm known as my mommy's girl. Although being a 21-year-old, I still have my days where I could cuddle up my mom, make some hot tea, and discuss my life. All this is only because I managed to build a very important thing with my parents during my teen years, which is communication. My dear teenagers, a lot of you ask me what my formula of success is and how I'm able to juggle between different aspects of life. And the ultimate answer to that is my communication with my parents. I tell my parents of my weekly schedule. My mom knows all my ins and outs. And I trust her knowing everything that I am doing. And I feel safe because I feel like someone knows what I'm doing. So back to the question, who is a teen? What is a teen? A teen is an individual who is now walking towards adulthood, who does not want to share everything with their parents, who's very distracted by social media. This is a teenager, not the Google definition. Some people, I know a lot of mothers who tell me, you must be a very calm child with your parents. But no, that's not true. It is my mother who was calm with me, which led me to being a good teenager. So a teen is just a normal person growing up. That's the simple definition I can give you.
Thank you for that, Muhaimana. You've put it so well, very powerful. A teen is an individual moving towards adulthood, and we have to appreciate that. Okay, over to your next question. A teenager faces a lot of emotional challenges, and how should we look at that? The challenges that a teenager faces through emotions?
First and foremost, before I give you my answer, parents might think teenagers are just children who are growing up, but they are facing so many issues, so many changes. You can't even imagine. And you might have faced these issues and changes while you were growing up, but your time and your child's time are two very different times. So as teenagers develop, they will experience a range of emotions and express themselves in very different ways. I can't give you one specific way a teenager can react or have an emotional change because everyone is different. It's normal for teenagers to be moody and to show some disrespect. Not that I agree with it. Show some disrespect and deference as they go through hormonal changes and a period of brain development during puberty. Teenagers may also be very short-tempered as they naturally begin to seek privacy and independence. I'm sure many mommies have experienced this, getting into your teenager's room when you knock without knocking, and they'd be like, "Mom, you're supposed to knock before you get into my room." That happens quite often. They may begin spending more time with their peers or lock themselves in a room away from their parents. It is important in such a scenario for you to provide support while your teenager is maturing and gaining independence. Guiding your teenager, setting boundaries, and forming positive relationships will help them through the challenge of adolescence. There's 50 years of research that shows that teenagers with a good relationship with their parents do better in all these areas of adolescence, and they are more likely to grow into well-adjusted adults. Sometimes as a parent, the last thing you want is to be asked to spend time with your child because you know that, oh my God, she's just going to be on her phone or she's just going to be watching TV. So what's the point of spending time with that child? If that's the case, think of it like this. All the things you want, like respect, following rules, meeting curfews, all work better when you have the foundation of a kind relationship. No matter what is going on at home, no matter what issues you have, as Sister Farzana mentioned, that do not bring your issues on your children because they are growing up. You don't want them to have all these issues. But no matter what's going on at home, make sure you build that relationship with your child. Your once agreeable child is now a teen, and they may seem to disagree with everything you say and do. Sometimes even a sideways glance or, or anything can start an argument. The answer lies in the purpose of adolescence, which is to learn to become an adult. And to do this, they need to practice. Like when a toddler is growing up, he will get up and fall, and then get up again and then fall. So that's how a teen works. They'll get up with their emotional problems, they'll fall. They'll get up again, they'll fall. In this process, they might show disrespect because they are facing an entirely different life. They're no longer those 8-year-old kids. They're now growing up to become adults. I at no point at all agree with teenagers stepping away from their parents. My dear teenagers, I would simply ask you to be more conversant with your parents. Tell them, Mom, you know what, today I'm having a really bad day and I am really struggling to navigate. I want to talk to you, I really do, but I need my own time and I need my own comfort to do so. And trust me, mothers will provide you with that secure environment. So that's what the emotional challenge is. They can't be one. It's an entirely different thing in adolescence. Puberty, this change is happening, that change is happening. It's a lot to navigate. So there's a lot been put on a team together.
Wow, Muhaimina, that is so powerful. I think as mothers, we must appreciate what our teenagers are going through as they move towards puberty and adolescence. We must appreciate that they are going through a lot of hormonal changes, and we must try and understand them. Just like the way Muhaimina has brought in a lot of scenarios and very powerfully put that they are practicing towards adulthood. So we must appreciate that and allow them to fall and get up, fall again, and keep going on and on. Okay, thank you for that, Muhaimina. Over to the other question for you. Now, sometimes there is a huge age difference between a mom and a teenager. How does a mom bridge that gap?
So the biggest question in today's event that everyone might have come with is, how can we build this gap? Whether it is a large age gap or it is a short age gap, whatever it is, the answer is one thing, and I'm going to explain it to you. I can give you a long list of things you could do to bridge the gap, a long list of activities. So many things. You can do this together, go shopping together, watch movies together, all these things. But I'm going to give you only one, which is the most effective one as I grew up as a teenager. One that made me successful with my parents. One that made me an individual that I am now, which is just one word: conversation. Talk to each other, even if it means for just a while in a day. Start with 5 minutes. You can tell your mom how lunch was, or your mom can tell you how amazing it was to meet her friend at the supermarket. Then go on to 10 minutes a day. Say something else that happened. Move on to 20 minutes a day. This process will build your conversation with your parents and your parents' conversation with you. My dear teenagers, your parents love you and they care for you. The teenage years are the most amazing years in one's life, and spending it with your mom and your dad is an amazing way of spending it. Now that I've explained to you the point of view of a child, and Sister Farzana has very well kept the point of view of a parent, I would like to give you a very short activity that will bridge the gap between whether you're short, whether you have a big edge gap or a small edge gap. So if you don't have a small paper around you, then you could use your phones or anything around you. And I want you to spend 1 minute, just 1 minute. It's 9:33 right now, until 9:34, just a minute. Write one good thing that you've done, or anything that has happened with you today, or anything that you want to share with your child today. And if your teenager is right next to you, let him or her write one thing that happened with them today. Okay, it's already 9:34. So by 9:35, just write one thing that happened during your day. Just one thing. In a minute. I hope you all know the hands up button. If you guys are done, you can just put your hands up. This is a very good activity. It's a proven activity that helps. So if you could just take out a minute to do this. Thank you, Sister Zohra. We can see that you're done. Okay. If you're done, you can just put your hand up, or you can write down on the chat or something like that. Just one small thing that happened in your day that you'd like to share. Okay, it's 9:35. Now, read the next minute. Read that thing out to your teenager and let your teenager tell you what he or she wrote. One more minute for you to do that. Let this be a memorable experience for you while you tell your teenager what happened during your day. We'll give you 30 seconds more. Okay. Now that you've all gone through this 1 minute of sharing experience, I don't know if someone would like to share what they spoke to their children about, or would like to share how they felt about talking to their teen about their day. Does anybody want to share? If you'd like to share, please, you could put your hand up, and you don't need to switch on your camera, but you could just tell us how it felt doing that. Does anybody feel like? Anybody wants to share? It's a good experience. Okay, I'm sure you've gone through it, you've enjoyed it, and it's okay if you don't want to share it, because it is yours child, you and your child, and that's the fact that you went through this shows that you can now speak to your children, and you saw how amazing it is to tell them something that happened during your day, and for them to tell you something that happened during their day. And this is just 1 minute. Now just imagine if you spent 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day doing this, how much closer would you get to your children? So back to the same question about bridging the gap, one word answer: communication. Whether it is 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes a day, make sure you do it. With everything been said, my dear parents and teenagers, I hope this talk was helpful. These answers were helpful. Let this activity and event be the beginning of your new relationship with your children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muhaimina. You have put in the word so powerfully, conversation. And yes, as mothers of teenagers, we have to make sure we find time to converse with our children and, build that rapport with them. And you can see your mom communicating with you so beautifully here. She's very proud of you, Muhaimina. MashaAllah, absolutely. So are we. Thank you for that, Muhaimina. We'll catch hold of you in the Q&A session, so hang in there. All right. Thank you so much. Moving on to Masmanti Shanawaz. Masmanti, welcome aboard. Masmanti, please unmute.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. You can go ahead with what you want to ask me.
Okay. Welcome, Masmanti. Thank you for being part of this panel. First and foremost, I want to ask you, as a parent, how do I talk to my teenager? Okay, Muhaimina's talked about how conversation is very powerful. Now, could you elaborate on, as a parent, how do I talk to my teenager?
Thank you so much for giving me this chance. And so much has been discussed already. According to me, when the teenagers are communicating with us, we should make them feel comfortable and secure. Yeah, make them feel and know that their views and opinions really count and that they matter. This will not only facilitate our discussions with them, it will bring us closer as well. We should do the listening. When I say listening, I mean active listening, rather than thinking about what you want to say next as soon as the child takes a breath. Let them know we are available to them when they need us. And we listen. When we listen, they understand we are interested. We should give them the eye contact, eliminate all the distractions, for example, newspaper, phone, TV, and of course, not forget mouth.
Sorry, Masmanti, you've been muted. Masmanti?
Sorry, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So I remember talking to a girl who was telling me, a teenager, she told me her mother was into meditating a lot. So she said whenever I went frustrated to my mother, she would tell me, immediately she would want me to stop and take deep breaths, because parents are accustomed to being in a fixer mode and it robs the teens the chance to vent. Rather than just listening to them, we stop them. Sometimes we shy away. We don't give them that eye contact. We look away, we look down. When they have done a mistake and they want to get back, when their conscience bites them and when they feel guilty, they want to come back to you. So instead of judging them, we should hold their hands. We should feel proud that they want to confide in us. We should not be in mode. We should let them vent. We should let them show their wild emotions. Teenagers have wild emotions. That also makes communication difficult, but we should be always there for them. For example, if a teen is upset about something, example, a crush or a fight with a best friend, we should not tell them it's something so small. Just don't feel bad about it. If, for example, a teacher did not invite the teen to take part in the annual sports, or maybe the friend did not invite her in her party. For me, if it was with me, something like that, I would feel less stress, time saved. But we don't think in a similar way. We can't tell them it's such a petty thing. No, if it is petty for us, for them, it's a huge thing. And we should always make sure that our rules should be logical and they should have definite underlying principle. They should not be based on our moods and feelings, And these days they have social media craze. One of the greatest challenge they have is the social media. And the social media is buying them with the idea that materials can give them a lot of happiness. Now, I want you to share with me the ayat which is in the Holy Quran. Surah Qasas, ayat number 79. There's a social media craze and there is a platforms like TikTok, Instagram, all these things. So this ayah, Prophet Qarun came out with all his, to show people. You see, فَخَرَجَ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فَخَرَجَ عَلَى قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ قال الذين يريدون الحياة الدنيا يا ليت لنا مثل ما أوتي قارون إنه لذو حظ عظيم. So he went forth to his people in his finery. Those who desire this world's life said, oh, would that we had the like of what Qarun is given? Most surely he is possessed of the mighty good fortune. You see, so even the same thing at that time, during those days, social media was not available. So he would come out with all this material and all those glory. So our teenagers and our youngsters are spending endless hours on these platforms. Sometimes the messages which are communicated to them are very, very, they are not Islamic and they are very disheartening. And it tells them that if you want to become famous, if you want attention, if you want to become popular, what you have to do is you have to do some a dancing or a loud dance. For example, you have to do something wild, record yourself while doing something crazy. So all these things violate principles of Islam. So it is on the parents to be available for our children whenever they need us.
Thank you so much, Masmanti. I think active listening is very powerful. And as parents, you've given us a very good example about how we look at our form of communication, not realizing what our children are looking at us when they want to communicate to us. So active listening is very powerful. Moving on to the next question. We are all struggling with our religious duties. And as parents, how do we help our teenagers cope with their religious duties? What is our role over here?
All of us know this. We just have to be their role models because they have a lot of data. There's so much information they have. They are full of contents. So we don't have to teach them. We have to inspire them. I'm not saying that we dilute the religious principles. No, but we have to be role model. So there was a question asked to a scholar, is it okay for me, because all of us, none of us are perfect. So a scholar was asked, is it okay for me to be bed in private if my child can't see me? And the religious scholar said no, because if we are having bad habits, for example, then our advice will not affect them, even if we are good in front of them. And in conscious parenting, parents will look after themselves, their nerves, they get illuminated, and their family gets illuminated. If a parent genuinely wants her children to be pious, she has to be pious as well. A man comes to a sixth imam and he tells the sixth imam, yeah, Imam, my child has traveled and is very far away from me. There is no communication between us because that was the time when there were no smartphones or there were no phones at all. So the sixth imam answers to their father and he tells him that if you have given him the proper upbringing, then even if it is not, he is not or she is not with you, he will still become awliya Allah. But if you have not given him the proper tarbiyat and if you were not a role model to him, even though he would be with you, staying with you, he would not be able to become awliya Allah. Another example of Imam Khomeini, he was very soft spoken. And whenever he gave speeches, there would be a lot of background voice and noises, but still people would be engrossed to what he was saying and his words would touch people's heart. Just why? Because he practiced what he preached, you see. And then there was a mother, she had a teenage boy who had the habit of listening to music. She was very upset about it and the parents decided to go to Mashhad. And then when they went to Mashhad, even on their way, he was listening to the music. In the haram, the parents saw Ayatullah Marhum Agha Bajad, who was surrounded by so many people. And the mother requested him, please kindly advise my son to stop listening to the music. What did Ayatullah Marhum Bahjat, may Allah rest his soul in eternal peace, what did he do? He hugged the child and he just told him, stop listening to the music. So many books were not needed. A series of lectures were not needed just because he practiced what he preached and the child from that day onwards stopped listening to the music. You know, there are two types of control we can have with our children, two types of upbringing. One is a direct control, which is commanding them, advising them, suggesting them, requesting them. And then the other one is an indirect control, which is more powerful. What is the indirect control? It is through the arrangement of child's environment. Let me give you an example. If I talk evil about other people in front of my children, children are very good learners, you see. So they will become negative spotters. Their mind will be in confusion because they reflect in what we do. They take us as their role model. Worse than that is when I hug and laugh with a person who I was bad-mouthing in front of my child will be left in, their mind will be in confusion. And this is not how we teach them loyalty, you know. So if we want to inspire them, we have to be a correct role model to them. And there is Dr. Johnny Wilt, he is the clinical psychologist. He said there is a perception that many parents think that once our children become teenagers, we stop having influence on them. But he said it's not like that. Parents are one of the biggest influencers, whether it is a teen child, whether it's a small child. You know, children can copy their peers in other minor things, maybe, for example, in music, in fashion, in clothes, in hairstyle. But when it comes to code of character, when it comes to behavior, when it comes to education or career, they copy their parents. And when having Allah and spirituality in our life is so important. When someone does not have Allah in their life, what happens? They're frustrated, they're angry. Let me just give you one example, and statistics have so many examples. You know, it is in the abcnews.com. It says that two teens, age of 15 and 16-year-old in America, they just shot a 21-year-old basketball player, Australian basketball player, when he went out for jogging. They just shot him and they were arrested for this murder. And what the police said was they were bored. They were just bored and they wanted to see how a person dies. Another example is in South Africa, in South Durban. A mother plots to murder her two sons and she hires a relative, gives him money, $2,400, and she tells him, you murder them. And what was the sole purpose behind it? Because she wanted to claim the insurance which she had done for her sons. So see, when we don't have religion, all these things we do. When we have religion, in spite of having social media, in spite of having so much peer pressure, we still have our goals and we have our religion. The potential benefits associated with the personal religiousness have been very, very well documented. They said that it has less drug, less alcohol, less tobacco use. It lowers the depression rates, suicide. It gives us better sleep, quality life. And Dr. Johnny Witt, the clinical psychologist, said that we have to investigate. In the beginning, it will make children feel bad. They will be angry, but they'll get used to it and they will not go into substance abuse. But unfortunately, one research study said that in the last 20 years, significantly less numbers of parents are taking seriously their role in the spiritual formation of their kids. So why is this? What can parents do to help their kids develop a faith that is vibrant, real? Why do kids walk away from their religion? Why do kids walk away from their faith? So there was a girl, a Christian girl, who was talking with me, and she said that she had a real hard question. Just excuse me. She had a hard question, but she knew that her mother or her parents will not answer to her. She had questions on Christianity and their faith, but she knew nobody will remove her doubts and her concerns. So she became disillusioned and she was discouraged. You know, kids need logical and believable answers and explanations for their hard questions. Sometimes we get scared that our kids have doubts, and so they're discouraged and we judge them. We don't want them to have doubts. So the parents and older children, they need to be one in which there is honesty, openness, and the young person needs to believe that he or she will not be ridiculed or shut down if they ask questions. They really need the answers. I hope. And there is the ayat of Surah Saf, ayat number 2 and 3, whereby Allah says, I want Sister Anar to share it on the screen. Surah Saf, ayat number 2 and 3, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun kabura maqtan indallahi an taqulu ma la taf'alun. So here Allah is telling us to not to say what we don't do. He's saying, oh, you believe, why do you say that which you don't do? So this is a clear example for us to be a proper role model for them.
Thank you so much, Sister Masmanti. Very powerful. It's on us as parents how to nurture our level of Iman. We are the role models to our teenagers. and most important, our environment. The environment that we bring up our children in plays a definite impact on their lives. Okay, moving on to the next question. Teenagers and peer pressure. We hear that time in, time out. Why is peer pressure an extremely strong force in the life of a teenager, be it the positive or the negative?
We all agree and know that good parenting is becoming increasingly difficult challenge. So what is of utmost important for us is to realize more than being a father and a mother in the sense that was understood in the 60s and 70s or even perhaps in 80s. We need to know now we have to be their friends together with being their parents so that we are their friends. They If there was a time we would be scared that what type of friends do they have, there is curfew, why are not they coming back home together, who are they hanging around with. But these days inside their shut bedrooms and closed bedrooms, we don't know how many online friends do they have. It is serious and it's a real life situation. Children face it every day, and saying no is not very easy for them. Youths are peer pressured by society. And number one form of peer pressure is substance abuse, alcohol, tobacco, drugs. And we all know one of the most emotional peer pressure we face are related to image. The way we dress, our height, our weight, how we act, and who we hang out with. And self-esteem of teens take a huge blow when peer pressure causes them to change who they are. In the past, parents, teachers, and spiritual leaders were the most significant contributors to the wholesome development of the teenagers. Peers and media played the secondary role. However, today it has reversed. I don't know, maybe due to lack of capacity, negligence, or maybe parents are excessively preoccupied worldly affairs and we become so busy and occupied with our day-to-day duties that sometimes our sentiments for our children remain suppressed. But the Holy Prophet, we have his example. He was sent to reform the whole universe. He had a very big responsibility. But still, I'm not going into detail in the past. But how was his relationship with his daughter, Bibi Fatima alayhi salam? Before going for a trip, she would be the last person he would visit. After coming back from the trip, she would be the first person he would go to see. He would literally play sports with Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. So we should know that every child has a gift. Every child has a talent. We should find it. It's our responsibility to find it, and you make it into a strength. Youths of our communities are very, very talented. They have lots of talents in them. Now it is for us to make use of these talents.
Absolutely. That's very powerfully said, Maslanti. Definitely, we have to build a close connection, a close bond, and appreciate and nurture the talent our youths have, our teenagers. These are our gems, and they are like our ministers. They have so many innovative ideas. I can see Muhaimina smiling away because being a teenager, she has achieved a lot in just that short span during her high school. So definitely, our teenagers, moms out there, trust them, support them, believe in them, allow them to get up, allow them to fall, communicate. It's okay to be honest sometimes when things don't work. They need to know the real honest relation. They need to know their honest, real way of life, but don't overburden them with your problems. They cannot take that as yet. Understand they're going through hormonal changes. We've had 3 of our panelists bringing in very beautifully examples, explanations, and we must appreciate them for the research and the knowledge they have shared with us on this platform today. Now I will open up the Q&A session. Ladies, teenagers, you're invited to put down your questions on the chat, or you can unmute and ask your questions. The floor is yours. I will give a moment for everyone to think about the questions they may have. Okay. Nobody with any questions? Okay, I will give another moment. Meanwhile, I'm going to share a link. It's a feedback form from the Africa Federation Women's Board. Please take time to fill it in and give your feedback. It's going to be valuable for the Women's Board to be able to enable them to move towards more sessions and feedbacks as well. So there it is.
I have a direct message question
Go on.
from a parent. The question is, how should a mother behave when a teenager disrespects? The person is asking me to please elaborate. So there are many reasons. Before I tell you how you should react, let me tell you reasons why these teenagers would disrespect. The biggest one is they want your attention. They want to see that when they're growing up, do you still give them the same attention to the way you used to? So that's the first thing. So the first response to disrespect is just don't show them that you don't care about it. If it goes on and on, set a boundary. Tell them that this is wrong. Tell them you're offended, that you feel bad, that when they disrespect you. A lot of children, when they grow up, they see, like as Masuma auntie really kept it well, that your children will be a reflection of you. So disrespect during teenage years will be very minimized in the first place if you show your child respect. They are now adults. You treat them like adults. When you treat them like adults, they won't disrespect you. And in case they do, tell them. Conversation, that's my first way of bridging the gap. Tell them, I feel offended. I feel bad. I'm your mother. Don't talk to me like that. Please don't do that to me. I speak to you nicely. You speak to me nicely. We'll understand each other. I'm not going to tell you like stuff you could do and tell your child, oh, go in this corner, or be upset with your child and don't talk to your child for a day, or make sure you don't give them whatever they like to eat or stuff like that. No, those are all kiddish stuff. Leave that. The biggest thing you need to do is tell your child, I feel bad that you spoke to me like this. I feel offended that you did this to me, and I would not do that to you. And I understand that you're going through a lot, but I'm your mom, I'm your dad. Don't do this to me. So coming back to what I said during my questions, the biggest thing is conversation. Let them know that it is hurting you and you're offended about it. That's the best way. As a teenager, if I would do that to my mom would tell me, Maimna, this is unacceptable to me and I can't accept it. And that would be the end of it. So the best way to tell your teenager is tell them it's hurting you. You're welcome.
Thank you for that. It all comes down to conversation, and that's very powerful. Thank you for that, Mohaimina. Over to a question we have. I have two questions here. I'll start off with the first one. I agree on letting kids have experiences of their own to grow, but sometimes the risk is too high. How do you go about it? Sister Farzana Masmanti?
Does Masmanti want to answer that? And then I can go ahead if...
Sister Farzana, you go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to start off with quoting Sister Masmanti, sorry. You mentioned about the upbringing of the children, and if you have, worked with your children in their early years and shown them the path and the way, then by the time they go into their teenage life, they have seen the way, they have seen the path, and then you can trust that even if they grow themselves, that they're going to grow in the right direction, a bit like the plant. If you're going to put, you know, the sticks in place and, you know, a bit of wire or whatever's needed to let that plant grow in a certain direction, when you do eventually put it out, the plant has taken form. Just like, you know, you see these really nice little trees with, they've grown with a spiral. They've been trained to grow in a spiral form to look very pretty. And when you actually plant them outside, that spiral will stay. It's not going to go straight. It's not going to go, you know, to the side or whatever. So, you know, that's what I would say. And also, if that child, I mean, I'll answer this from a social worker's perspective, because I've seen a lot of different issues. I've seen substance misuse. I've seen sexual abuse. You know, I've seen self-harm and things like that. So it's not, it doesn't faze me in any way. These are things that I see often, and I see things with young children as well. And I just feel that if we don't allow the child to explore, what the child will do is they will be confused as they get older, and they won't be able to manage challenges. To some extent, if a child makes a mistake as a teenager, like Masuma Aunty said, that teenager will have a conscience, because we've allowed them to have that conscience. We've always taught them to say the truth, that they will feel guilty and they will come to you for advice, inshallah. And I think they can make mistakes. They're not going to go to extreme mistakes straight away if you brought them up the right way. They may make small mistakes, but that needs to be allowed at a young age for them to understand that was a mistake, and I can do tawbah, and I can make a change and improve who I am. Now, if we never make mistakes in life, I don't believe that we can grow up in a way that we have that experience or knowledge, and that we have a stronger connection with Allah. It's the mistake that draws us to Allah. That's why we have dua. We say to Allah in our duas, I'm sorry, I've really made mistakes, you know? And that draws your connection with Allah. So I've kind of used Masuma Auntie's answers to answer that, sorry. But they were beautifully put, Masuma Auntie, thank you.
Thank you for that, Sister Farzana. Masuma Auntie, would you like to add on something then?
We all do mistakes. I will just say we should not judge them. We should give them space. Yeah, and then I want to share one story that a mother came to the alim, and she told him that my teenage is into women and into alcohol. What should I do? So the scholar asked him his age. So she said he's 17. So the scholar replied, it's too late, you know. If we really genuinely want our children to be pious, we really have to give them quality time. Spend twice as much time then. You know, these days, all the child psychologists and all the counselors, what they are saying, parents feel guilty because they are not spending enough money with their children. I will share with you one story of a single mother. It had come in the Nation newspaper. She was a single mother. She was going for a job, and she said, every time I would buy for him nice toys so that he does not feel neglected. When I come back home from work, I see that it's broken or he's just playing with the box. Then she started playing with him sports. And that gave the child so much happiness. You know, and statistics show that we have to spend time, which we play with them, football, swimming, we go for a walk, we go for cycling together. So that those things bring us into bonding. We bond when we do stuff together rather than just buying for them to make them pay, because this media is buying them with the idea that material gives you happiness, but spirituality gives a lot of happiness. You know, they are focused, and children, when they are focused and when they have God in their life, they are very, very happy. They are very happy.
Thank you for that, Masuma Auntie. Over to our next question. This is from a sister. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the informative session. How do you stop a child from bad company, especially when there is lack of good ones around? Bad habits of video games, etc., is penetrating from all sides. Masuma Auntie, would you like to go for this one?
I think let Muhaimina go for it. Maybe she will be able to do that better.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. Bad company. I feel the bad company, it all starts from you. How do you tell your child what a good person is? By being a good person yourself. When your child knows that you're a good person, when your child knows what a good person is, then the child will not have a bad company in the first place. So bad company only comes when you don't know what good company is. Yes, if your child has now already gone into the bad company, you need to sit down with that child. And I'll go back to the same word I used in my talk and my answers is conversation. Tell that child that maybe I did something that makes you think that but this is a part of a good person, but no, this is not good. This company you're having does not have attributes that are good. And maybe you made a mistake in doing something at home. Maybe you made a mistake in your actions that made your child think that the bad company is a good company. So my answer to your question of about companies, you need to show your child what good company is by being a good company to your child. Before the child reaches teenage, 13, 14, they have spent 12 good years with you. And in that 12 good years, it is your job and your duty to show them this is good and this is bad. I know people might say that a 12-year-old, can they differentiate? Oh, yes, they can. I work with students who are 10, 11 years old, and they tell me, Miss Muhaimina, this is not good. And Miss Muhaimina, this is bad. So bad company and good company and getting out of bad company is all on you by conversation. And in the first place, your children will know what a good company and a bad company is by your actions. The part about video games, and Auntie, could you just repeat that part on the video games?
Yes, sure. Okay, so the question was, how do you stop a child from bad company, especially when there's lack of good ones around? Bad habits of video games, etc., is penetrating from all sides.
Okay, the part about lack of good company, you are their good company. And even if you have one good friend as opposed to 20 bad, there's no bad friend, as opposed to a company that is not good for you, that's fine. Learn to tell your children it's the quality of friends that matters, not the quantity of friends. And about video games, I, as a teenager, as a former teenager, will tell you that to an extent, let your child play some video games. Set boundaries. Tell them you've reached your limit, finished, switch off. And don't I'm not a fan of someone telling their children that no video games, no this, no that, no social media. Social media is good to an extent. Learn to tell your children that there are boundaries for everything. It is okay to play FIFA. It is okay to play Fortnite, but it is also okay to play for a while, not the whole day. So please, if any mom has that misconception that playing FIFA and video games and using your social media to an extent is a bad thing, please drop that off from your mind. It is good, but set boundaries. Teach your children from a young age that there are boundaries. And you know, when they say when you grow up with some values, they stay with you forever. That's why the young age of a child is so important. So again, I'll come back to the same thing. It's your upbringing until the age of 12 that's going to determine how your child is going to be as a teenager. I hope I have managed to answer your question. Sister Farzana, Masmanti, if you can add anything on that, you could do that.
Perspective on this question.
Sorry, we lost you there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so from your being a social worker and being having an experience in all these challenges that teenagers go through, what would you advise us here?
So in the last few weeks, I've had a couple of calls actually from very cultured and religious family members that have said that their daughters have got mixed up in the wrong crowd. they're making unwise decisions. And to some of them, it's come as a shock. Now, I think one thing that we need to realize is that a child, a teenager, they want to explore, because like a child who wants to go into corners, wants to dig up things, wants to open cupboards, they're exploring and they're learning from exploring, and we allow that. When they become teenagers and they start exploring, they want to know, well, you know, do I fit in here? Do I not? We need to, again, communication needs to be good so we understand where they're exploring, and we can have conversations with them about exploring in a friendly manner so that they trust us, and we can give them, you know, we don't force our decisions on them, we explain to them, okay? But another angle I want to answer this question on is a lot of our youth may not fit in. So I've had clients where the child is not accepted by certain groups of people in the school that we call good. We find the best school possible, right? We find a reputable school. And within that school, we just assume that every child is really good because they've come from, you know, a well-off background and they've had a good upbringing. Well-off background doesn't mean that all those children are good. You know, just like how it's been already said before that, you know, maybe the parents have paid paid their children's lives in terms of buying them gifts so that they don't feel guilty. We don't know how those children have been brought up. We make opinions that group of people are good, but we really don't know that because we haven't spent time with them. And if this child is feeling rejection from different groups of people, they're going to try and find a group where they fit in. Now, I'll give you an example. I know somebody who has her own issues in growing up. Parents have been divorced. Emotionally, she had her own issues, although the mother has raised her in a beautiful manner, you know, given her a perfect life where she hasn't had to worry about anything. There's no exposure to arguments and things like that. So you would think, you know, very rounded life. However, that child, when she was younger, she had seen quite a bit, which hadn't been worked on. So this child had a lot of kind of difficulty, sadness, and being rejected by friends at school wasn't helpful for that because it re-triggered the pain from her childhood, which she may have forgotten about. She may not even remember, but being in that environment of rejection from people who she was told would be good, would take her in, it brought up so much pain that she then found herself with a group of people that were sad. They had pain, they had gone through a lot of trouble in their life, and she felt connected with them. I hope everyone's following me so far. Now, within that group, it was acceptable for self-harm and things like that. And so because there wasn't communication with the child, she fell into issues around self-harm and things like that. So again, we need to have good communication. We need to understand the pain that our children may have gone in the past, not dismiss it. And I know that's been brought up by both Muhaimina to some extent and Masuma Auntie. Do not just assume that no, we'll just tell them everything's fine, it's not a big deal, you know, you can get over it. No, if that child we can see was struggling with some pain somewhere in their life, let's find a way to work with them. Now, the best person to work with them would be the parent. But if the parent feels that they're not equipped to be able to work with that child in terms of mental health, now it doesn't mean they have to be in full-blown depression before you work with that child. You know, even if there's some level of sadness, let's try and get them to understand what sadness is. And once they've had support and they understand their emotions, because, sorry, one last thing before when a child is born, they don't internalize and they don't look inside and know what they're feeling. They see what others are feeling. So they feed off their mom. Their mom's happy, they're happy. Their mom's sad, they're sad. They only live off the outside world. It's only when they get older they actually understand, actually, I have feelings. So this is why when the child was young and she had seen so much, she didn't understand it because she never went deep inside to see how it affected her. But as she grew older and she started to become aware that she has emotions, she feels pain, that's when things started to trigger. I hope that makes sense. It's more about child psychology to some extent, which needs another session in itself, but just, you know, just as a few pointers that we can maybe consider. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sister Farzana. Definitely, as parents, we have to realize a very important word coming out in today's session from all our three panelists: communication, support, and helping our teenagers and our children for that matter. We have, mashallah, quite a number of questions coming in on the chat and privately. We have a request from the Women's Board that for any further questions, please send them to women@africafederation.org, and they will be answered, inshallah, and put up on the Facebook page. This was an hour program, and mashallah, it has been an interactive session, and you can see how parents, mothers especially, want a way forward. And ladies, it's okay to ask for help, because sometimes we don't have the answers to everything. We've not come with an instruction book on how to parent. But yes, with our support group, with the support from each other, we can get ways and help to reach out and support our children, because they will have an impact on their future. So it's very important to ask the questions, even if we are not being able to address them right now. Please, ladies, email it to women@africafederation.org, and they will be answered on the platform, and that way everybody will be able to get the knowledge from those answers as they are shared. We appreciate our panelists for today, Sister Farzana, Masumanti, Muhaimina. You will all agree this has been a very enlightening session, a lot of knowledge, experience, ideas being shared, and we really thank the Africa Federation Women's Board to have done this platform and able to have input and guidance from our panelists. Thank you. And I hand over to Sister Neelam Jiva, a team member from the Africa Women's Federation Board, to take over. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Thank
we
you very
can.
much. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining in. A special thank you to Farzana Bai, Masuma Bai, Muhaimina. It was the way Anar has said it. It was very insightful, very practical. I only wish this was there 15 years ago when I was going through teenagers. But nevertheless, I'll try to control damage as much as I can. Thank you so much, ladies, for taking time and sharing such good things with us. Anar, moderator, job well done. It was really nice the way you summed it. Thank you so much. Our star today, Hina, thank you, Mombasa Rep, for getting all of us together and doing such a wonderful job. Not forgetting Farhana for the lovely recitation of the Quran. Thank you very much, ladies. As Anar has said, please do feel free to send us any questions. We shall post them and get them sorted. Thank you very much. Have a great evening and a great weekend.
Can I just share one thing, Nilam? Is it okay
Yes.
if I share one thing? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. There's a Sahifa Sajadiya dua book of our fourth Imam. There's a dua number 25 is very good for our offsprings. If we go through the meaning given, it's a beautiful dua. We should try read it every day. Dua number 24 is for parents. Children should recite. Dua number 25 is for children. Parents should recite. And there's a very nice book, Toxic Childhood: How the Modern World is Damaging Our Children and What We Can Do About It. It's by Sue Palmer. It's a very good book. If you can get hang of it, I think we should, as parents, go through it. And we have examples of Imam Ali. He was the first one to follow behind the Prophet. He was only 10 years old. Bibi Fatima left a legacy in a teenage. She was only 18. Bibi Maryam delivered Prophet Isa and she was in her early teenage. So our teenagers are very, very powerful because they are in the prime time of their age. We should not underestimate them. We should make use of them. And letter number 31 of Imam Ali to second Imam in Nahjul Balagha is also very, very powerful if we can go through that. Another, just one last thing, I forgot to mention it. Sometimes our children don't want to open up to us because we run towards solution. Like for example, I was once upon a time in one of the members of the education board. And because the exam is here and my children are frustrated and the curriculum is not finished, I would sit with them. I would want them to open up to me. They will tell me, no, you will phone them, you will tell them. You know what we do is, let me tell your friend why she did to you. Let me call your teacher. They don't want solutions. They just want us to be there. Let them cry. You know, when they are emotional, we become more emotional than them. So it shuts them down. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you so much, Masuma Bai. So you ladies, you have a takeaway. The Fatiha Masuma Bai has given you. I think it's awesome. If you need us, Sabira has already jotted down the duas. In case you missed out, we will send them to you. Thank you very much, and Khudafiz.